Hi, and welcome to Bible Study with Friends. I'm here with my friend Philip Thomas. We are finishing up our Bible study in 1 Timothy. Today we're going to be talking about a very important thing that relates to us, especially us Christians in the United States and in the West. And that is the warning Paul gives us through Timothy about the uncertainty of our money, our uncertainty of riches, of our wealth. And he's also going to talk about, instead of the uncertainty of riches, he's going to talk about the certainty of stored up treasure. And we're going to talk about that today, so stay tuned. Welcome back to Bible Study with Friends. Our goal here is to show and grow a passion for studying God's Word. And Philip and I have been meeting. This is a real Bible study. There's no script, as you'll tell as we get going. But we want to invite you to join us in this Bible study. And we're going to go verse by verse through a few verses in 1 Timothy. We're going to be in 1 Timothy chapter 6, towards the very end. We're only going to do 3 verses today, from verses 17 to verse 19. They're important verses, right towards the very end. How are you doing today, Philip?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited to be back.
Let's turn to these verses. Can you see that all right?
Yeah.
All right. And we're going to start at verse 17. Now, this section here has actually started way back up in verse 6. From verse 6 down to really this verse 19 is all about how to treat money in the church. And Paul is giving Timothy advice on how to teach and how to treat money within the confines of the Christian life and in the confines of church. And down here, we're getting down towards the end of this. We've talked about in the last few weeks, we've talked about how to pursue money and what to watch out for, and how to be a man of God when it comes to money. And then we talked about the doxology, the blessings that Paul gives right up to verse 16. But starting in verse 17, I want us to focus in on this. And let's take a look at this verse. Starting at verse 17, I want you to read this verse, and then we're going to talk about how it relates to you and me in today's world. So go ahead and read verse 17, Philip.
Instruct those who are rich in this present world not to be conceited or to fix their hope on the uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly supplies us with all things to enjoy.
There's some cool things in this verse, but what strikes you about this verse? How does this verse relate to you and I?
I mean, we're always going to have money, so I guess just kind of making sure that you're not so obsessed with money, you know?
Okay. First of all, it's talking about riches, but this is riches. Riches is kind of a subjective thing. Okay. When he says, instruct those who are rich in this present age. Mm-hmm. Let me ask a question. Are you and I rich in this present world?
Yeah, I would think so.
Compared to
other parts of the world?
Countries and really countries that are in the East, we're rich. I have friends in Cuba, Christian friends in Cuba. And man, they got to stand in line for their rations, and they have very little food. Really struggle. And I think the per capita in Cuba is just a few $100s a year. I mean, it's really nothing. But compared to you and I, so we can immediately say, okay, is this instruction for you and me in verse 17? Does it relate?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it really does. So we can automatically, our ears can go up and we can say, hey, this instructions for those who are rich in this present world, that relates to me. So I need to pay attention here. Now it says, what are the instructions? And this is where you were talking about that just a second ago. The instructions are right here, not to be conceited. That's the first thing. Now, how does what we have anything to do with being conceited? What does conceited mean?
Kind of like self-absorbed.
Okay. Self-absorbed and self-centered. Right?
Yeah.
So one of the things is, for you who have enough, for you who are rich, for us, you and I, the first thing we need to be careful of is not to become self-reliant, self-centered, self-sufficient on what I have. You remember back in Jeremiah 9, I think it's 23, it says, let not the rich man boast of his riches. And somebody who's got enough and is really better off than other people, the warning for us is, let's not be conceited that we've got some things that other people don't. And now it could be money, it could be riches of talent, it could be anything. But the warning is not to be conceited, self-centered, self-reliant, self-focused. That makes sense?
Yep, it does.
All right, so that's the first instructions. Don't be conceited. The second is, or, okay, so this is a list that continues on, or to fix their hope, and in our case, we could read this, to fix your hope on the uncertainty of riches. Now, how do we fix our hope on the uncertainty of riches? What does that look like?
Like planning the future with, thinking that nothing will change in terms of like your when I think of it, I'm thinking about money when it says uncertainty of riches. So I know money can change because it's dependent upon other external factors that
Exactly. And the uncertainty of riches, we say, well, we're doing really good right now. But what happens if your job goes away?
Yeah.
Or what happens if you get sick and can't work? Or what happens if the economy crashes or COVID shuts everything down, right?
Yeah.
That's uncertainty. Now, we're not supposed to be worried about the uncertainty of our riches, but we are also not supposed to fix our hope on it. And that hope is this. Remember, we've talked about the word hope in Greek. It means confidence. So this doesn't mean hope like in I wish this is true, but this is, do not fix your confidence on the uncertainty of riches. And then there's this word right here. We've talked about this word before.
But.
What does but mean? When we come across but,
a contrast is coming.
It's a contrast. It's a contrast with what just went before. So he says, don't fix your confidence on the uncertainty of your money, but instead fix your confidence on
God.
So I can stop and back up and ask myself, am I self-reliant and self-centered when it comes to my money? And do I have my money as the focus of my confidence in the future? Those are good questions. They're good questions for us going into 2021. Or is my focus and my hope, my confidence in God? And it says right here, it explains, I can have a hope and a confidence in God because He richly supplies us with all things to enjoy.
Not bad.
Now, you might say, well, I'm struggling financially right now. He's not richly supplying me with all things. But remember, He's supplying us with things we need, not necessarily things we want. Remember, we talked about that with those who up earlier in chapter 6, with those who crave things, those who crave to be rich so that they can satisfy their own desires. Remember that?
Yeah.
And this takes us back to Matthew chapter 6, where Jesus was talking about God, don't worry about what you're going to eat or what you're going to wear. God will provide the basics, right? And he says, don't fix your confidence on the fact that you've got a good income. That income could go away. Now, also, don't worry about that income going away. That's where you become self-absorbed. You're worried about, boy, I got to sock money away. I got to be really careful, and I got to watch my job because, boy, my trust. And if that job ever went away, I'd be shattered. Well, if your job goes away, that means God's got a plan. And we should focus on the confidence we have in God and that he has a plan and that he'll supply all your needs. Now, I've been very wealthy in the past. When I was in advertising, I made great money. But now I'm on a fixed income. And yet God has very graciously provided us, my wife and I, with a place to live and a ministry that has been provided for, and people who love us and love what we're doing and provide for us financially, above and beyond Social Security. Oh, what a blessing. But that all came through reliance on God, not worrying about where we're going to get our next check. That make sense?
Yeah, it is.
And this should be very convicting for us, because Paul is giving Timothy instructions to tell his church, which is in Ephesus, which is a big, booming business economy. It's saying, your members who are citizens of Ephesus and doing business and making money, instruct them not to put their hope, their confidence in that wealth, because it's very uncertain. It was uncertain then and it's uncertain now. So this speaks to us. Do you think?
I think so, yeah.
So this is the second command. First command is instruct those who are rich in this present world. Now, it's interesting that he says rich in this present world, because in heaven we're all going to be rich. We're going to be rich in blessings, rich in grace, rich in praise, rich in glory. We're not going to have bank accounts, but we're going to be rich towards God in heaven. But he's talking about people that are rich in this present world. And I think that relates to us. Now, if we continue on, the second command is instruct them. That's the same thing. So instruct you and me, Philip.
Right.
Instruct us well-off Christians. This is people in the church. Instruct them to do good. There's a couple things here. We can do good things just with our actions. But we can also think about doing good things with our money. Am I giving places? Am I giving to the church? Am I giving to projects that really do good? Or am I just kind of tipping God by throwing him a little bit of money once in a while in the plate? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we're being instructed to think about our lives and how to do good. How to do good with our actions, but also how to do good in our lives, with what the Lord gives us. Whether it's giving a percentage to the church and also looking for opportunities to give percentages to other ministries or people, Bible study with friends, for example. But I'm under instructions to do good with what I have. And then I'm under instructions to be rich in good works, right? To be rich in good works, to be generous and ready to share. So what would be the question we would ask ourselves for personal application of verse 18? What would be a good self-question?
Are we sharing generously? And then are we kind of sharing in our good works too?
Yeah, now, are we sharing generously? That could be, I take friends out to dinner once in a while. I'm generous. Or I buy people presents. I'm generous. But in the context, he's talking about generosity in what is good spiritually within the confines of our spiritual walk.
Okay.
So I can ask, am I generous? Am I looking for opportunities to be generous when it gives the Lord glory? And am I ready to share with people when it gives the Lord glory? Interesting question. And Paul's hitting it hard here. Now, our last verse is interesting because in verse 19, he's talking about if we follow the instructions and we don't fix our hope, our confidence on our money, but we depend upon God and we look for opportunities to use what God has given us in our money, in our wealth, to be generous and to do good works for His glory. And it says here, our rewards, we're going to have some future rewards because doing that, following those instructions, will store up treasures in heaven. Okay, storing up for themselves the treasures of a good foundation for the future, so that they may take hold of that which is life indeed. Now, I want to break this down. I want to talk about this. I really went off and did a little Bible study on storing up treasures.
Okay.
Storing for themselves treasures. Now, it says we're not supposed to fix our confidence, our hope on our money and our wealth and our treasure and focus on that. Yet by being reliant on God, fixing our hope on God and letting Him provide for us, and then being generous with what He provides for us, that will do something for us in that will store up treasure that we can be proud of. Not treasure that we fixed our hope on in physical money, but treasure that we can have a good foundation for the future. Now, I want to talk about that. And I want you to look at Matthew chapter 6. And I want us to look at a couple verses here. In Matthew chapter 6, I want you to read from verse 19 to verse 21, Philip.
Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in or steal.
Now, this is Jesus Himself, and He's talking about don't store up money on earth. That's the same thing as putting confidence in our treasure on earth. And that's what He said in today's world. That's what Paul just got done saying. But Jesus says instead, store up treasure in heaven where nothing can touch that. It's going to be there in blessings. We're going to get crowns of reward. We're going to get praise of our Master and Savior. It's going to be great. Now read Matthew 19, 16 through 23. This is the episode where Jesus is talking to the rich young man. Okay. Go ahead and read those verses.
And someone came to him and said, Teacher, what good thing shall I do that I may obtain eternal life? And he said to him, Why are you asking me about what is good? There's only one who is good, but if you wish to enter into life, keep the commandments. Then he said to him, Which ones? And Jesus said, You shall not commit murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness. Honor your father and mother, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. The young man said to him, All these things I have kept. What am I still lacking? Jesus said to him, If you wish to be complete, go and sell your possessions and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven, and come, follow me. But when the young man heard this statement, he went away grieving, for he was one who owned much property. And Jesus said to his disciples, Truly I say to you, it is hard for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven.
And he's saying that not because you can't be wealthy and be a Christian, but he's saying that because it's so easy for a rich person to focus and fix their hope on their money. That's what Paul just got done talking about. And if your money is where your confidence lies, you want to hold on to that. And Jesus, when he says, if you want to be complete, now the word complete basically means mature. Okay. It means well-rounded. It means complete in what you need to do. So he said, if you really want to be complete as a believer, be generous. Give your money to the poor and follow me. And the rich young ruler goes away sad because his money has blocked between him and living a godly life, right? And both of those, Jesus is talking about storing up treasure in heaven and not relying upon our earthly riches, our earthly wealth. I remember hearing about Corrie ten Boom. You know who she is?
Mm-mm.
Corrie ten Boom. She's written many books. She wrote The Hiding Place. She was a survivor. She was a Christian Jew who went through the
Oh,
Holocaust.
yes. When you said the hiding place, I read that book. Yeah.
And she was speaking one time, and she was talking about the light of the gospel. And she was talking about, you need to shine your light. You need to shine the light of the gospel in the world around you. And as an illustration, she picked up this big flashlight. And everybody went, oh yeah, that's a good example of shining your light. And it was interesting because this was kind of a famous thing, you might have heard about it even, but she took the flashlight and she says, shine your light, and she threw the switch and nothing happened. It didn't come on. And everybody kind of laughed and said, well, okay, this is a technical glitch. And she turned her switch and she said, something's wrong. I can't shine my light. And she threw the switch and everybody was kind of chuckling. Yeah. And so she unscrewed the top of the flashlight off, and she looked in and she reached in and she took out a dollar bill.
Wow.
And the dollar bill had been between the batteries and the contact for the flashlight. So she took out the dollar bill and set it down, screwed the flashlight back on and turned it on, and the light came on.
Wow.
And she said, we got to be careful not to let money come between us and shining the light of the gospel, come between us and living the Christian life. And that is exactly what Paul is saying in these verses, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That a great illustration?
It really is.
And really convicting to us.
For sure.
That, so many of us are storing up treasures on earth. And Jesus said, you store up treasures on earth, people can steal it. It rusts away. It evaporates. Instead, I want to store up treasures in heaven where a thief nor rust nor anything else can do, because I'll hold those for you in heaven. And that's what he's talking about. It says, so that they may take hold of that which is life indeed. Now, this is not fake life. Do you remember when he talked about widows earlier in the book, in Timothy?
Yeah.
He talks about those who were widows indeed. He uses that same word. And that word indeed means really widows, right? The real widows.
Yeah.
And here he's using that same thing. So that they may take hold of life indeed, the real life. The real life is not a life of a big savings account and being secure in our self-centered, self-focused, conceited way of life, in that it's all about how much money I've got. Very convicting.
Yeah, it's sobering.
We trust in God. And that's these instructions of these verses. So I can come away with this thing of saying, Len, what do you trust in? Where are you putting your confidence? Is it all about conceited about your bank money, your wealth, what you have? Or is it focused on and fixed on the confidence we have in God that no matter what, God's going to take care of us? And I've gone through vast periods, up to 3 years, unemployed in the past. Between these big, well-paying jobs, I'd go through a period of unemployment. And I'd ask God, what are you doing? Because people would say, Len, what do you do? What do you do for a living? I said, right now I'm just looking for a good opportunity. Oh, okay. And I felt like I was a second-class citizen because our society puts confidence in our wealth.
Yeah.
And I learned, I'll put my confidence in God, let him provide. And he provided for me, and here I am today. I haven't lost any meals, as you can tell. Right? What are your thoughts, Philip, on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it's very sobering. I mean, because most people, I mean, like we talked about, really don't consider themselves rich. But when you think about it in terms of where you are in, not just, I guess, like in the West, but also in other parts of the world, you really realize like, oh yeah, I am considered rich. So because I have that responsibility, I mean, because I've been given these riches, like I need to take care of them and yeah, kind of like do what this is asking us
Yeah.
to do, expecting us to do. So
Yeah. I think that's an application we can really think about in our lives as Paul is instructing Pastor Timothy, teach your people to do this. And he has taught us to do this very thing. Look, I want to end here. Next week, we're going to finish the chapter.
sounds good.
In the meantime, I want to thank you. I hope you subscribe. I hope you hit the like button. That shows you're engaged with what we're doing here. And I hope you comment. I'd love to hear your comments about what your hope is fixed on. Where is your confidence going into 2021? I'd love to read those, and I'll get back to you and answer anything I can. And God bless you, and we will see you next week
All right.
for Bible Study with Friends.